Hey Neppers, it's me, Wild Neptune. This video is gonna be my take on the upcoming limited hero, Midnight Gala Lilias. Hope you enjoy. If you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing, liking, commenting. Thanks for the support. Now, on to the video. So we're gonna start here by watching the opening animation. No sound, just look at the pretty pictures and everything, and how just majestically wonderful it all looks right here. Perfectly. Okay. Now, the question is, should you pull on this hero? Is she worth it? And the answer to that is probably going to be yes, because she's limited. But how good is she going to be? Let's find out. Earth Thief, you see, very offensively minded. Right, high attack, very high speed, crit damage in the kit here. Attack percent imprint, very low bulk. But her kit was going to be like, the first one we'll look at here, the skill 2, Elaborate Scheme. At the start of the battle and at the end of the turn, grants damage limit to the caster for 1 turn. After attacking on the caster's turn, when the target's health is 50% or less, activates Now or Never. Now or Never can only be activated once every 3 turns. So on this passive, she has 2 passives, one of them being Damage Limit. What that does is attacks cannot exceed 35% of the users, so Lilias's max health per an attack. So think like Tempest Servants or Spirit Eye Celine's passives, but a little bit better. Now, worth noting is that damage limit is a buff that can be dispelled. Then we have Now or Never. Increases the attack of all allies for 2 turns before increasing the combat readiness by 10%. And this is a AoE, so party-wide CR boost, and it can go up to 15% with the Mola enhancements. So right off the bat, you see, if she does enough damage, then, she'll boost the whole team up and give them an attack buff. Now, remember that this does have to be on her turn. So she doesn't activate this passive effect if an ally does the damage, or if it's during, say, a dual attack or something like that. However, I do believe the way it's worded, if it's her turn and an ally dual attacks with her, then that does boost, activate the passive and everything like that. Not positive, but just based on wording like it is, it seems like that would be the case. A kind of a fringe scenario, I would say, but something to worth consider. As in PvP, you have to consider these fringe scenarios. So let's see it here in action. So let's actually go back a little bit. And there we go. She does her big damage right there. And all the damage there activates the passive. And there is the push. And that animation we saw was her skill 3, Take the Lead. 4-turn cooldown. Requires 2 souls, 3 turns with the Mola. So, increases attack of the caster for 2 turns before attacking the enemy in their blind spot. And increase combat readiness of the caster by 35%. When the target's max health is greater than the caster's max health, penetrates target defense with penetration rate increasing proportional to the difference up to a maximum of 100%. A successful attack, so that means not missing, always results in a critical hit. So, she's one of those heroes, like Evalyn or Hua Young, that does damage based on the difference between her max HP and the target's max HP. The bigger the difference, the more damage that she does, up to a 100% maximum bonus. And, on top of that, she always crits as long as she hits. This means that you do not have to build any crit on her if you don't want to. It also means that Torrent Set is probably the best offset on her, simply because Torrent Set lowers her max HP, and that is very advantageous to her. Nothing much else to say about this except that this is a powerful, damaging ability. Finally, her S1 is Go Kyla. Kyla is the dog, by the way. Attacks the enemy with Kyla and recovers health. Amount recovered increases proportional to the caster's attack. So, and as we know, she has pretty high attack. And again, even on the S1, this always crits if it hits. So, absolutely no crit chance needed. Now we have the artifact, Hostess of the Banquet. We'll go over the 15 and max. So at 15, it gives 30% ER, and when attacking, if the target's health is 50% or more, increase damage by 12%. So at max, it's 40 and 16. Obviously, the base here, 20 and 8. So this is an interesting artifact because it's on a thief. It just is on like another, I would say, class, like a warrior, maybe even a knight. I think this would be like really, really good, almost. On a thief, it's hard to see what units would use this besides Lilias here. Well, the Midnight Gala Lilias. Because remember, you might be wondering, ER, why ER? I'm just doing a lot of damage. However, remember, her passive damage limit is dispellable. And some builds might want to run some effect resistance on her so that it doesn't get dispelled. And the fact that she already doesn't need any crit at all, you can put that crit into ER instead. And having this little bonus here could go a long way. I don't think every build is going to do this. However, I do think it might be a reasonable build that she can do. So I foresee a couple of builds, one of them being a all-out damage one, and the other one being a maybe even a counter set build with some ER and stuff like that for a little bit more sustain. Because even though her bulk is pretty low, remember that damage limit does make it so that she is hard to take down, and she also heals too, which means that let's say hit a couple of times and she's like below 35%, right? Next hit kills her. However, she heals with the S1, and guess what? Now she's back up over that threshold, and you have to waste more attacks into her again. And because potentially she can counterattack, or because of her speed can actually lap around faster, it might be hard to take her down without the right tools. Now let's look at her damage numbers here on the Epic 7 damage calculator. A very nice tool I suggest you all use to try to get an idea on what kind of breakpoints and benchmark your units can do. So Midnight Gala Lilias is here. We are putting on her own artifact. I just use some stats that I can pull from my own units. I don't think these stats are that amazing. Actually, the most inhibiting part will be getting the torrent gear that you need to make this possible. And this is also without any imprints. So 4200 attack, 340 crit damage. Remember that the S3 does give her increased attack, so that is turned on here. 1 torrent set, artifact 30. We're gonna test this against, upper end builds of popular units. I have my HP set at 7911, as that is the HP that I had. But to make it a little bit easier here, we're gonna put it at an even 8,000, just for nice round numbers. So the first unit we're going to go over is going to be Last Rider Crow. So higher end Last Rider Crows, let's say they have about 28,000, sometimes a little bit more, HP. Okay? Now, the S3, as remember, it scales with the difference between your max HP and the opponent's. Well, a lot of HP here, very little HP here, big damage here on the S3, if you can see it. Over 32k, almost 33k. Now, the actual threshold to do max damage difference is 16k. So, if your max HP is 16,000 points lower than the opponent's max HP, you are doing the max amount of damage possible, and in my case here, it is 32,823. And the S1 also doesn't do, half bad either. I've only had that up. About 11,500. So, not bad over there. Now, what about a unit, though, that has less max HP? So let's look at, say... Also, we're using a base defense of 1,600 defense here for the testing. What if it's, say, a MO Landy, right? So most MO Landies are running between 15 to 20k HP for what I see. Let's go right in the middle, 17,500. So 17,500 right here. As you see, because his HP is actually a lot lower, we're not quite doing as much damage with the S3, only about 10k. However, interestingly, the S1 actually does quite a bit of damage, 11,402. And remember, it always crits, which means Mandy's or Candy's, whatever you want to call her, anti-crit thing, nope, it is not working, and she is taking a ton of damage. Now, what if the target only has, say, the same amount of HP? Well, I mean, then they just die to an S1, right? So, even things with lower HP are still taking a lot of damage with an S1 over the S3. But the S3 is like your kill shot against the very tanky targets and everything like that. Now, of course, what if there is, say, a, damage reduction, damage transfer? So let's put in, what do you call, like, escort, and maybe, I don't know, add him into shield, right? And now we can also put in the Landy HP. And you see here, it doesn't quite do, quite as much damage right here, unfortunately, with all these defenses up. Now, in the case of Let's Ride a Crow, Let's Ride a Crow's often the person that is running the things like the Aureus and things like that. So, he's probably dying to an S3 if the Let's Ride a Crow is good. Ironically, worse Let's Ride a Crows actually, live. So, maybe there's some, mind games going on there. But a pretty good burst damage unit overall that I feel like, if built correctly, can actually, even if they trade 1-for-1, could trade 1-for-1 and maybe, hit another target, pretty substantially before Lilias goes down, which I think is a big key. This is one of the things that made Hua Young so strong before she was nerfed, that even if all she did was potentially trade 1-for-1, her staying power after she killed the first target was so great that it was hard for the opponent to actually get that 1-for-1 trade. Mo Leica right now is very strong because even if she only trades 1-for-1, her initiative on that trade is very powerful, especially when the opponent cannot respond in meaningful ways. Now, of course, there are some things that do relatively well against her. Remember, even though she can do a lot of damage to Mo Landy can pretty easily take off a lot of her HP bar with her, counterattacks into salvo, stuff like that, because those do count as multiple attacks, and they will chip off a lot of her HP. So even her needs 3 hits to be killed thing doesn't always work the right way. Remember too, things like Alencia, they have multiple attacks, extra effects like maybe Elmo's shoes, S2 passive also will proc this and stuff like that. Extra damage also, after effects will not take effect her passive. So things like Karina, even though she is a water unit, her punch into the extra damage that bypasses passives like Midnight Gala Lilias, like Spirit Eyes, like T-Servants, and heroes like that have traditionally been the go-to counters for things like her. Worth noting too, though, is, like I said, this unit is going to be, in my opinion, very versatile. Again, she can be a big burst damage dealer, go really fast and just take out a unit, maybe a little bit slower on counter. I feel like there are going to be multiple ways that she's going to be used. However, most importantly, like I said, she seems like she is going to be tuned to fight the menace of the meta, ML Landy. Do I think, though, she's going to be as good as Hua Young? No. She is not that good. Hua Young did stuff like, I believe she got like immunity and has some other crazy bonuses too. No. Okay, like thankfully, right? However, I do think she will be a very good hero with gear like threshold that is, for her to be usable, not actually that high. I think you'll be surprised with how much damage you can put out with her as long as you have ways to keep her HP below, I would say 8,500 is like the lowest HP I would be comfortable with myself using. The build, again, that I had and I could use was 7911. Remember that your artifact choice after you put on torrent gear is going to be like what determines really how much HP you have. And there were some like interesting techs where people would use like level 27 helmets, because helmets that would give you the HP to lower your HP and stuff like that. Is that going to be worth it? I don't know. I don't even know how they landed on level 27. Like, how was that like this? Like, what math did they use? With that was the sweet spot for helmets. Anyway, Midnight Gala Lilias, in my opinion, must pull unit for your PvP roster. Not only because, look at this. This is the best Lilias has ever looked, ever. Also, the dog is very cute. But she is one of the big counters, in my opinion, coming up to ML Landy, and we all need ways to fight against her. And that's the video. Hope you enjoyed it and found it helpful. Anyway, it's been a good one. Nep out.